and welcome to another day in my sewing room. This is Certifiably Jenny. I am of course Jenny, and yeah, I'm doing my winter wardrobe for moving to the UK. If you don't know what this is all about, there's a link, I'll put a link up here for the sewing plans video, which sort of explains all the bits and pieces that I'm doing. And I've picked the navy cashmere skirt. So I have been working hard on that, and it is almost finished. I didn't actually have time to turn up the lining hem, so it is actually pinned in the reveal, but I will get onto that. I also added at the end of this video my new coat solution for the UK, because I realised, I think as I've mentioned in another video, I've realised that none of the warm weather gear that I have for New Zealand is really warm enough for the UK, and that includes my coat. So my winter coat over here would really only be like a spring weight in the UK. It's certainly not warm enough for European weather. So of course the winter sales are on here. They're sort of coming to an end now, the new spring stuff's sort of coming in. But the sales were on, and we thought what we'd do is grab the opportunity and go out and buy some coats that are well, warm enough for that sort of weather. And what I've actually done is come up with a bit of a coat solution, because when we were cycle touring on bicycles, we had basically puffer jackets underneath and then a rain jacket like a Gore-Tex over the top. And that was so brilliant when cycling. And also since I've come back, that is really a go-to sort of warm weather, wet weather sort of combination, especially when I'm walking Maggie. So what I wanted to do was translate that into a more stylish sort of streetwear type of thing, but I really still wanted the warmth of a puffer jacket and the high-tech rain-proof seam-sealed quality of an outer shell. So I did look at what was available in New Zealand, and a lot of those sorts of things are very much I'm climbing up a mountain sort of look, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted a more stylish sort of walking about town sort of look. And I did eventually manage to find that and put that together. Now I have bought the Kathmandu puffer jacket long length sort of fitted ladies coat, which is lovely and warm, really well made actually. I'm so impressed with it. Not sponsored by the way, I'm just really pleased with the coat. And then also I was looking for a rain jacket with seam seals and a really good level of waterproofing and breathability and all of those elements. And what I actually did is something that I've done before. I actually found the solution in an equestrian shop, because what I have found is that horse riding gear generally tends to be really quite stylish, and it sort of has that elegance and that old world sort of look to it. But it is really high tech because it's a sport. So that's what I've done. My rain jacket, again, is full length coat, and that is actually for horse riding and sort of looking after horses. Obviously I don't have a horse, I don't know the lingo. But of course it has all the bits and pieces I want, and there's no drama with it actually being wide enough to fit over my hips, because it is actually designed to go over a horse's backside. So I figure it should work for me, and it did. So that is right at the end of this video. I do the reveal and then I basically just model my new coat solution. It is excellent for cold weather, wet weather, and wet and cold weather, which from memory is what they have a lot of in the UK. So I hope you enjoy this video of the making of my cashmere skirt, and I'm busy beavering away on the next project now, so I think the next video you might see, unless it's a sort of a walk and talk type thing, the next sewing video you will probably see is my grey pinafore dress. But anyway, this is the cashmere skirt, so enjoy. This is just some navy fabric, plain navy fabric, but it is beautiful wool cashmere. It's left over from a project, so I don't have very much at all. I mean, it's this wide, and I basically have the width of the fabric, which is 1.50 m, 1.48 m, something like that, and then I only have that much of it. So not a lot, but I am not that big, and I find that I can get a skirt out of this sort of amount of fabric. It's beautiful wool cashmere, it'll be very warm. So I've sort of tested it and I think I can get out a slim skirt. A slim skirt with no extras. I think I can put in some little pockets. So the pattern that I have found in my stash is this one. I'm just going to use the sort of the idea of that scallop pocket, but make it a flat pocket. I think I have enough fabric to do a straight skirt with some little sort of angled pockets. That's what my plan is anyway. I have already drafted the skirt, I have drafted the pocket pieces, so we're good to go on that. So just a straight skirt in the navy cashmere. It's beautiful fabric. So really I wouldn't want to do too much to it anyway because the fabric itself is nice. Hopefully it won't be too much of a magnet with the hair. Her hair can stick to a lot of things. I'm hoping not. I'm doing my best to get this pattern on this fabric. It is incredibly narrow and I have tiny tolerances, so it's going to be quite a job, but I'm taking little bits of time when I've got it just to pop in and sort of do a bit. So I literally have 1/2 centimetre on either side of the back, a little bit more on the front, but not much, and then a tiny bit at the end to put on the pieces, and then a tiny bit at the end to put on the facing piece, and then that's the sort of you can't see the rest of the skirt bit sort of next to the pocket. So these need to be in the right fabric, so that has to get onto here. The other bits, the pocket bag and also the facing for the skirt, I'm going to do out of a different fabric. So it isn't going to have a waistband. I don't have enough fabric for a waistband. It's literally just going to turn over and have a facing on it out of a, I don't know, a contrast fabric or something like that. So, very tight. I'll just point you down and you can have a little look. So you can see the little tiny bits of extra I've got. I'm going to have to cut it very carefully. A little bit more on this side, as I say. So the next thing is to cut this out. And of course, I'm thinking this is going to be a quick make. It never is. It always takes longer than I think, but essentially there's just going to be 2 backs, a front, and then facings and all the pockety details. So hopefully not too long. But, and it could all go horribly wrong, but it's just a little bit of a remnant I have left over from another project, so not the end of the world if everything goes pear-shaped. Well, actually, if it goes pear-shaped, it'll be right, because that's the shape I am. But you know what I mean, if it gives me any trouble, yes, it won't be that much of an issue, that much of a loss of fabric if it goes a bit wrong. Anyway, I'm not going to think about that. I'm going to do my best to get this to work out. Okay, so it's another day now. I did last night manage to cut out all of the pieces. I even put all of the little tacks on. I have this fluoro yellow thread from years and years ago when I made this rather crazy fluorescent coat for a cycling fashion show. Would you believe? But anyway, I still have this very fluorescent thread, which I don't use really for anything else. So I now use it for tacking because it's a good use of the thread. And you can see it. You can definitely see it. You can see it where it's marked. Anyway, so I did all that. I have pinned the darts in place. Sorry about the sun, it's morning and we've got a lot of sun coming in. Winter, morning, low-angled sun comes right into my sewing room. So I'm trying to work with it, I'm afraid. So I've pinned all the darts. So the next thing to do is to put those darts in. I also need to cut some facings. So I need to find some fabric that I can use for that. Now I think I have some lining. Let me just look. Get the box out, I think. I'll have a look in this box, come back to you when I've got some options of what I think I'll use. I actually still have a little bit of the lining fabric that I used on the original project, which was a sort of a wrap skirt years and years ago. It was actually a wrap skirt that I made for, I think it was our second cycle touring trip. I think it was. Anyway, I'll have a little look and I'll come back to you when I've found something that I think might do the job. Okay, so I found this fabric. This is the fabric. Hopefully you can see that fabric. It's rather lovely tartan, which matches, but it's very thin. You can probably see how see-through it is, hopefully you can. and I don't have enough of it for the skirt. But I'm thinking that maybe if I back it with some black interfacing, that this would be okay for the facing. Hi Maggie, have you seen something? Have you? Do you need my assistance? Or you just want to tell me that you were barking? Good job. Is there anything out there? No? Just come in to visit. Okay, so I've been through my stash. I have this bit of old lining which is left over from my husband's waistcoat. Not enough of that. I have a little bit of this black thin stuff. Again, not enough of that. I have a little bit of the tartan. Again, not enough, but maybe the facing in that. These are the pieces of lining fabric which are actual pieces. Yes, there's a pink one. These came from my daughter when she got rid of her stash to go to Europe. I've got this bit which is sort of pinstripe. This I think is a lining fabric, just black. It's sort of cottony, but I'm pretty sure it's lining because it's quite thin. I have a little bit of this left over from an old project. Whether I've got enough I don't know. But if it's in my stash, it means that probably there is enough for a project rather than it being a scrap, which is in my scrap box. I have a little bit of this grey, which is left over from, you remember that project that was in my, oh God, it was an 8-year-old whip. So I've got a little bit of this left over, but I don't know if that's enough. And then I have some bright red, but again, probably not enough. So I sort of need to match these up with the projects and then see if I'll need to buy some lining fabric. I have a feeling that I may need to. Anyway, I'll match them up and see what I can make happen with what I have. Okay, I've been through all the linings and I have a lining plan now. So I'm going to use the grey lining fabric for this tweed fabric. So this is the leftover from my 8-year whip. I think there's just enough because this is, I think it's going to be just a knee-length skirt. So that will match quite nicely with that one. With the grey, I actually went with the pinstripe. I know it's white and this is dark, but you know, it's like, it's got the grey in it and I quite like these together. It still looks like a bit of a school sort of theme going on. Again, I think I just about have enough of this. I don't have much of this fabric, so it may end up being a skirt in the end anyway, but whatever, it's going to be very sort of little garment. And so I think I have enough of that. So that's the plan at the moment. And if you remember the tartan fabric, I did actually have the lining from this remnant already. So those, I've got plenty of this, plenty of the fabric. For the navy skirt, the cashmere, I went through all my stash. I did have that nice green stripy sort of fabric, but I really like that. And I thought it would be nice on a jacket lining or something where you could see it. It would be a shame to use it on a skirt where you probably wouldn't see it. So what I'm going to do with this one is actually cobble together a few things. I do have that bit of tartan fabric. So I'm going to, and it's got a similar colour. So because this is going to be the facing, I think, if it poked round, you know, and you saw a little bit on the front, it would still look nice because it matches. Whereas the green one, you would really see it. You would like, oh, what's that bright green? So I think I'm going to do that for the facing. And then I've got a bit of this black lining fabric as well, so I'm then going to move into a bit of black, and then hopefully if I've got enough I'm going to move back into the tartan, so that then if you see a flash sort of with the slit open, you'd see the tartan fabric. I think if I can manage it, that would be nice. There'd just be like a black band in the middle to sort of extend it and create enough lining fabric. They're of similar weights. They are both a very lightweight voile, whatever they call it. So I'm hoping that'll work. It's a lining, you know? And the seam, I mean, you wouldn't probably see the seaming. This is a really quite a thick fabric and it has a nap on it. And that's really thin voile. So if there's a little thin seam in there, I don't think you'd see it on the outside. So that's the plan. The only one I don't have lining fabric for is this raspberry and blue check, which, I mean, I do have some linings, but, you know, pink, lime green or the stripy is all I've got left over that I've really got enough of, and none of those would go nicely with it. And because this is such a lovely fabric, I really love it. I've had it years, and it's one of those fabrics that I haven't wanted to cut into, and I do want to now, but I want the right lining for it. So I'm actually going to go and buy lining for this. And I think that's, you know, it's nice fabric. A lining would be good. This is all supposing that these things survive the wash. So one of the things I probably should do now actually is overlock all of the edges of all this fabric and actually then run it through the wash. And I'll probably do it on the wool cycle on my machine, because probably that's how I'd wash them. And I mean, if I wash it by hand on with cold water, I would put it through the spin anyway, because it's winter and drip drying, it's not going to work on a wool. Certainly not in a day. So I think what I'll do is do it on the wool wash on my machine, because I mean that's what it's for, and hopefully they will survive. Yeah, this one, the red one is definitely picking up a lot of Maggie hairs, but hey ho. So that's the plan. Now I'm going to put all this aside and get on with making the skirt. I'm going to make the cashmere skirt, I'm going to make the whole skirt, and then I'll do the lining afterwards where I can really see what I've got, because obviously piecing and hobbling it together, I'm just going to have to make it work. So let's get on with that. Well, I've just undone this fabric, the lining fabric, the red lining fabric, the tartan. It's only that wide. It is 160 long, but it's only 60 long. So it says on the label, and it says 150 wide, which it is, and it says 160 long. Well, it isn't. That's only 60. So it's been mislabeled, unfortunately, and I don't have enough for the red tartan dress. So whether the other red lining fabric I have, I can cobble together with this to make a lining that will be enough, I don't know, or I'll have to buy some red lining as well. But a bit frustrating. You sort of anticipate that fabric shops can measure fabric. Not in this case. I have done the pleats in the back. So press them to the centre. I never know whether you should press them to the centre or press them to the outside, but in this case I've done it to the centre. I don't know if you can see, I've got a tiny notch out here. This was really all I could get extra to try and sort of beef up that flap. The seam at the back is only a centimetre all on this seam. So, and then I've pressed and overlocked these pocket pieces. I have pinned them in place on the skirt, and now I need to figure out how all that goes together. Every time I do this, I get very confused. I'll have to get that old pattern out and see what the instructions are, because it's very confusing. So that's the next thing, try and figure out how all the pockets go together. And oh, I need a zip. Have I got a zip? Heavens, let me look. I didn't think about that, did I? I might actually need to look at, yeah, I will need to look at all the notions I need for all the other bits and pieces, don't I? Because what have I got? Oh, I've got a grey skirt zip. Is it invisible? No, that's not invisible. Green. I've got a navy one, but it's much longer. So do I cut it down? I could cut it down maybe. That's a dark navy zip, but it's not invisible. That's a grey zip, a long invisible grey zip, which I will need for the grey dress. Is it long enough? Possibly not. I've got lots of random things, but these are generally, yeah, that's a very long maroon invisible zip. Don't need one of those there, do I? Yeah, so I always collect an invisible zip if I see it at the charity shop, because they're so much cheaper. So I thought, well, but I don't think I have anything, so I might have to go and get one. And it's just that the journey to go and get one is so unpleasant, and the shop well, my only shop really that I can get to easily on public transport now is a horrible shop. So that's Spotlight. So, and I go in there and I get completely dazed and overwhelmed and sort of stagger out an hour later, often without the thing I went for. So so I will check all my notions as I get into this project. Now I just realised, of course, I didn't actually wash the cashmere on this skirt, so I'm hoping that that's going to be okay. Well, it is what it is really now, isn't it? Because I've cut it out and I started, but I am washing all the other ones. Oh, and the wool blanket dress, as I'm calling it, ran it through the wash machine, cold wash, looks perfect. Put it on the line to dry, looking really good. So that's a really big win. That's the first of the wools it is 100% wool, so if that goes through, I'm hoping that the others will as well. So I've overlocked the tweed and the grey fabric, that's ready to go in. So we've got a bit of a production line going here. But let's storm on and get the next bit done. I have sort of pockets in here now. They'll be sort of stuck out a little bit like that because that's what the pattern is like. It's sort of, it allows you to have room to put your hands in. So I have managed to get the 2 pockets in here. So that's the tricky bit I find on this type of skirt, which I've done before. It's getting this pocket thing organised and all that little bit where you sew to a dot and then sew from the dot and then it's all bunched up at the dot and you know, all that. So I've done that. The next thing is to have a look at this back because I put my darts in. But of course, and I'm using this zip, which is it's a skirt zip, 8-inch skirt zip in a dark navy. So it is sort of perfect apart from the fact that it isn't an invisible zip. So I'm just going to do a traditional zip if I can remember how, because it's very many years since I did that. So I'll put the zip into the back and then I will just have to do the side seams then. Maggie wants to go for a walk. Could you just stop talking to that machine, please? Because I would like, are you going to look at the camera? You're going to be a star soon. Look, Maggie, you need to be a star. She doesn't want to be a star. She wants to go for a walk and she wants to be a pestry dog. So that's what she's doing. But so this zip I might leave for another day now. But I'm glad to get those pockets in because there's all these little bits and pieces. I was never really sure whether it's going to work because I didn't do a mock-up and then I just made the pieces up and attached them into the skirt, hoping it'll be right. Then I put the zip in. To be honest, I might hand tack it first because then it won't shift. And this fabric has a little nap on it and it's not a lot, but it's enough that it just wants to walk about a bit. So I think I might do that. I might just do the back seam and I might be able to sort of vaguely test fit it just to see if it's going to work at all. Right, I will get on with the back seam and then I'll probably put the zip in on another day, but I'm really pleased to have got this far. Okay, so the zip's in, which is great. I did end up hand basting it in and then stitching it because it's quite a long time since I did one of these types of zips. I've had a bit of a thought about this lack of fabric here to do a sort of an underlap, to do a slit. So I can just do a slit, which is basically just a straight slit like that without an underlap. But the problem there is there's a huge amount of tension that will be on this piece where the seam ends, and you often see this on really cheap garments in fast fashion. They'll do a seam with a back slit or a side slit or front slit for that matter, just ending like that, and of course it won't last 2 minutes because you only have to take one big stride and that'll rip the seam. Well, more likely it's going to rip the fabric, which is what you don't want. And that's why you have that sort of underlap, because it provides a more secure sort of wider seam that's on the, not straight up like that, but sort of on an angle. So I would really like to do that. So the cunning plan I've had may not be that cunning, but if I try it on, I might be able to sort of scoop in a bit over and around my bum and then scoop in a little bit. But I'm just wondering if I scoop in a little bit whether I would get a little more fabric, because I have managed to get a little extra out of the fabric, but it's not really enough for a decent underlap. So I might try that, but obviously first of all I've got to put it on and see how it fits. That's the next step, I think. So I'm going to pin it, test fit it, and then see where we are. I mean, it's my block, it should fit, but who knows, you know, with all the pocket changes and I change, I don't know. I'll put it on, and of course every different fabric that you use behaves differently. So this has a little stretch in it, not a lot. Give. It's not stretch, it's give. It's just, yeah, a little give. Not in the length. Oh no, a little give in the length too. So yeah, I'm going to pin it, try it on, and then see where we're at. I'm quite pleased with that. Hopefully you can see it. It's a little bit dark in here. The pockets have come out nicely. Quite pleased with that. Of course it fits. It is my skirt block. Excuse the socks. And I'm just thinking that I probably can just tuck it in a little bit underneath the bum and maybe get a bit more room for that overlap at the back. Might try that. Okay, well, I've tried it on. I'm pretty pleased with the fitting. I'm actually going to now just zoom up these side seams, and then, as I say, I think I could probably take a little bit out, not very much, but squeeze just a little bit more fabric on that back slit, and then I may be able to get the skinniest bit of overlap, but I think it would be worth it because it would just make that back a little bit more robust. I'm a bit of a strider and I do like to cycle, and I often will go over a style and those sorts of things, so I do want it to be robust because it's awful if it just goes and you know you're wearing a skirt. It's not a good look. So I'm going to do the sides, then I'm going to see if I can slightly amend the back slit. And just on a quick side note, I have washed the rest of the fabric, so that's the tweed, the grey wool school uniform type thing, and also the raspberry and blue check, and they've all washed up really, really nicely. So very pleased. No fabrics were harmed in the washing of these wools, so that's really great news, and I shall carry on storming on. Okay, quick update because I've stormed on and done a bit. So the sides are now all stitched. I also took in that back seam a little bit. So I managed to, I don't know if you can see, I managed to take in this little back seam, and then I have added just the tiniest overlap, but there is a little overlap, and I have done the diagonal seam, not seam, but the diagonal stitching along here. Just it's much more secure when you're walking in the strain on that area. So hopefully that will work, and it just tucks in a little bit under the bottom, not too much, but enough that I can just get that vent in, which is good. Then what I did was I stormed on and made the facings. So I made the facings out of that nice check lining, and because it was so fine, I have actually interfaced the whole piece as well. So it's a little bit sturdier, and I have now pinned it on to the skirt. So the next thing to do is to actually zoom around and attach it. And then of course what I will do is understitch the on the facing, because I want it to stay turned to the inside if at all possible. So that's the thing. I have, in the process of cutting out that facing, I had to be very, very careful with the fabric. So I have cut out these bits. Now they may not seem like much of a pattern piece, which they're not. That's actually a bottom bit of skirt, and then I also have two other bits. These are two other bottom bits of skirts. It's leaving me sort of about that much distance from the facing to this skirt. So I'm going to try and fill that in with the black. Okay, I have managed it. It looks a little odd. You can see I've got the tartan fabric at the top. Then there's a black bit, and then we come back into the tartan. So I think that's okay. This is a little stronger, this fabric, so I think it will be better round the hips. I need to figure out the back flap. I'm going to probably have to add in an extra bit of this fabric, because I've just realised, of course, it needs to be attached to the skirt, so that's another day. It's Friday evening. I have my glass of wine. Very nice. So I thought I would stop now and address this later. The other issue I've got is my daughter has gone to Germany. So my daughter was my hemmer. She was brilliant. She'd come over every weekend and pin up my skirts. So I'm going to have to try and persuade the husband, which could be more an ask really. So we'll see how long it takes me to get this hem part done. But apart from that, it's finished, I think. I'm quite pleased with it. I've slipped it on. I'm not going to show you because of course there's the reveal, but I've slipped it on and I'm quite pleased with the way it sits. It's just slightly dropped waist. It's got these nice little pockets. It's really smooth, soft, lovely fabric, so, and a nice dark navy. So just need to hem that, and then hopefully it will be ready to wear, although way too hot for New Zealand, so I'll probably put it in the wardrobe for waiting for colder climates.